There are currently a million different tournaments on Underdog that we have the option to choose from. But personally, I'm having way too much fun with the Mini Schnauzer 4. That's the $3 buy-in, $100,000 prize pool, $10,000 for first. Not a super unique tournament from that perspective. But what I love about this, 15-second clocks. Makes it go by fast, ton of action. These get crazy. Let's go ahead. Let's get in here, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm excited to draft with y'all. But Jacob, welcome to being a member of the flock, my friend. Happy to have you. And where are we picking from? Okay, we get pick 11 here. Now, I think picks 11 and 12 are significantly better now than they were back in May. The reason being is there's some values later on in the draft that are now on this side of the draft board as opposed to the side where if you were at 1, 2, 3, you have access to them. I have some players here that I like targeting. So I'm fine with this. I used to kick, scream, cry whenever we got a pick here this late. But honestly, we're going to make it work. But thank you for coming out. Always happy to see you, Teresa. I mean, I was thinking about this the other day because I hope y'all know this about me. I personally, for my entertainment, I only watch YouTube. I have YouTube Premium, so I don't get ads. I can play it in the background. I love YouTube. And there are a bunch of like small YouTubers that I have watched for like 4 or 5 years where I was thinking like, it's the craziest thing that I've watched this person for 4 years now. And then I come and do my own live stream on my own YouTube channel. And I'm like, okay, Teresa has been here for pretty much 4 years hanging out with us every single day. So Teresa, it's nuts. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you. Same thing. Gucci Broomstick's been out here with us. God knows how long. That Z Millie's been out here for a long ass time. I mean, a lot of these people have. So thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. But looking at the strap board, a couple odd things happening. Lamb goes 1 ahead of CMC. Brees goes ahead of Bijan. That's a little bit different. St. Brown goes ahead of Jefferson. Outside of that, everything else looks pretty standard. So we are going to get Garrett Wilson here at 11. Now, I have a bunch to talk about in this live stream. We got a lot going on. But Adams and Olave, that team there, Go Lancers, love the name, goes for the unique builds where you are really never going to see teams have Olave and Adams on the same roster in this tournament based off the way their ADPs line up with them both going pretty much early to mid round 2. So, yeah, I mean, it's obviously a reach if you were taking Devontae Adams and Chris Olave there, but the reason that team's doing it, just so you know, at least I'm guessing the reason they're doing it, is so they have a unique start in comparison to the rest of the field. But Gucci Broomstick says we back for the summer. Let's go. RM also been out here forever, my friend. What's crazy is this profile pic has to at least be like 3-4 years old. So I'm sure you're an old-ass man now, but Joey, long-time member. Thank you so much, everybody. So real quick, let's answer a question that we had from Jacob. Jacob asked, do you have data to back up stacks that are beneficial? 100%. I will make that video. Maybe that'll be the next video we make. I'll make that video in July for y'all for sure. But just before I even show you all the data, which we've made this video a million times over, but let me explain from a very simplified perspective why stacks make sense in best ball, why they make sense in your regular redraft league, why they make sense in your dynasty league. Everything comes down to the fact that you are only incentivized to get first, to get second in your league. Being an average team gives you nothing. So it doesn't matter if you're not first, you're pretty much last. 6th place wins you $0. 12th place wins you $0. And first place pretty much wins you all the money, especially in best ball tournaments. So when we're looking at going through and say, making consolidated bets, if you are going to win your league, typically you have to get your picks at the very beginning correct. So let's say last year you took Jamar Chase round 1 and you took Joe Burrow later on. Joe Burrow gets injured and you have no shot to win. Well, hell, you already took Chase round 1. You probably weren't going to win regardless. Whereas on the other end, maybe you go ahead, maybe you take Tyreek Hill in round 1 last year. You double down and take Tua. And since you hit on that one selection with Tyreek, and maybe you took another guy in that offense because you think the Dolphins are going to be high scoring, whether that's Mostert, whether that's Achane, and they do end up being one of the better offenses in the NFL, then all of a sudden you're in a spot where you're just absolutely crushing the rest of the field. Now we're going to take Sam Laporta here. We're going to pair up Laporta and Gibbs. Absolutely love it. Right now, Vegas is projecting out the Detroit Lions to be the second best offense in the NFL and have absolutely no hesitation at all here. So let's go ahead. Let's grab Laporta. Dell goes afterwards. And essentially what at least I believe you are forced to do in these underdog drafts, if you look at historical data and if you look at how gross wide receiver gets early on, is I think here at the 1-2 turn, and I did a bunch of drafts off the live stream today. We'll talk about that in a second. We got a lot to talk about. I think you need at least one wide receiver at the 1-2 turn. I think you need at least one wide receiver at the 3-4 turn. Even if maybe going Laporta and Josh Allen potentially gives you the number 1 tight end overall and the number 1 quarterback overall, and it's so damn exciting to do on paper. It just is like impossible to catch up on wide receiver when you do it on Underdog. So, I don't know. And let's stick with the conversation of correlating. And yes, the reason you're going to hear people care about week 16, week 17 bringbacks and matchups is if you are looking, and that's only going to be relevant to large field best ball contests. And it's not even relevant to all the tournaments on Underdog, high stakes tournaments on Underdog. I don't think it matters. I mean, maybe a tiny bit, but it's not the main thing you should be focusing in on. The marathon on Underdog, it shouldn't matter. The sprint on Underdog, it shouldn't matter. Weekly winners on Underdog, it shouldn't matter. However, and I would say Best Ball Mania last year, you probably shouldn't have been considering it given the large percentage of the prize pool going to regular season prizes. But this year, it's going to be different in Best Ball Mania, where it's just exclusively prizes for weeks 15, 16, 17. And I would say with other tournaments, such as the one that we are in right now, it does make sense if it is a large field and a large pool of options in weeks 16 and 17, and that's where all the money is up for grabs, to then go ahead and to focus in on week 17 bringbacks. Because say you go through and say you take Tyreek Hill and Tua, if you need to have that championship score to win that round against a large field, you're going to need that to be a high scoring game overall. So it makes sense for you to maybe take another guy like Amari Cooper to have your bring back. And then all of a sudden, if that game does go nuclear, then you hit on both of those options. So I think tournament selection, it does matter for week 17 matchup. But Anthony, been out here forever. Happy to see you, my friend. Dingy says, would you trade away Ayuk, Hawkinson in a second for McBride and JSN and Happy PR Dynasty? I probably would not personally. We're going to go ahead. We know we need at least one wide receiver here at the 5-6 turn. So let's take Chris Godwin. I'll take CJ Stroud here, a considerable amount, but that's going to be preferably on teams where we walked away with either Dell or Diggs in this range. So for this construction, I don't necessarily know if it makes a ton of sense. And I'm going to take a wide receiver before the teardrop happens, where Jordan Addison, I think we are going to make our most drafted wide receiver this year. And I owe y'all a dedicated video for Jordan Addison. But real quick, we have a lot to talk about. Let's first get this out of the way because I always forget. We are drafting on Underdog, if you don't know what's going on. I draft here every single day. In my mind, it's by far and away the best place to draft. These are best ball drafts, so there's no time commitment at all during the year. So I draft hundreds of teams every offseason. So I won $150,000 on Underdog 2 years ago. And yeah, if you wanted to hop in a draft either in the public lobby or with me on the live stream, you can find that link in the description, in the comment section of the live chat. If you use code FLOCK when you sign up, if you have a new account on Underdog, you are going to get a 50% deposit bonus up to $250. Plus, you will get my 2024 rankings with code FLOCK, and you will get my 2024 draft guide with code FLOCK. And Underdog is available in damn near every state. I mean, you can see the map here to see where Underdog is available. But let's swing this around because we have some other stuff that we need to talk about. Let me see if we have any questions that we really need to address. Sob Napkin says, let's go, Mason. Hawk Tua for the win. My guy. Like I said, I will be drafting a lot of Hawkinson and Tua because it was inconvenient for my girlfriend to go that viral, but now that she went viral for her signature move, yes, I'm dating the Hawk Tua girl, if you didn't know. We got to support her. Support your woman. Okay. Now, Gavin says, hey, Mason, when are you going to hop into Best Ball Mania? I'm chomping at the bit to try to get in one with you. So today officially marks the first day that I'm going to start drafting like a madman off the live stream. So I drafted, I think, 3 Best Ball Mania teams this morning because I realized I'm not going to be able to draft them all on the stream. I mean, I could exclusively only draft Best Ball Mania teams on the live stream. We could draft all 150 on the live stream this year. Holy crap, CJ Stroud. What is going on? Where are the Houston Texans receivers? Who's passing on Stroud here? The team, Waffle Taco, you took Nico Collins and you had the ability to go CJ Stroud at 75. The Stephon Diggs team gets CJ Stroud at, I am so jealous. I would have, oh my gosh, that is nuts. We're going to go Kamara as our next running back. This is a big reason why we went wide receivers over the past 2 rounds, right? It's just because typically in this range, I know myself, I know we're going to be wanting to draft RBs. We could go Jameson and go full-blown Lions onslaught. I don't necessarily know if we can justify just soaking up that. We're just going to take another running back. I think the running backs here outscore the wide receivers dramatically if you look at their median projections. And I don't think that the ceiling's going to be so much higher with Jameson than what you're going to have with someone like Zamir White. So, yeah, I wasn't really drafting Zamir White at all when he was in round 7. Round 8, I think it's a more obtainable price. Just my issue with Zamir White was previously when he was being priced as if he was a completely different running back and a tier ahead of all these other guys like Swift, Najee, yada, yada, yada. Here at this point, I'm fine with taking him in round 8. Yeah, no, Stroud is falling a considerable amount. And any team that I have a Texans receiver, I will take CJ Stroud in round 6. The only instance in which I wouldn't do it is if you get Tank Dell at the 3-4 turn and you're behind at wide receiver and your hand's forced to go with the receiver, or you took an elite level quarterback such as Josh Allen. But Caesar says Stroud fell 18 picks in a draft that wasn't last night. The weird thing about Stroud falling like that is you have to have 3 different teams pass on him, because very rarely will you see any overlap between the Texans receivers. Very rarely will you see like a team have both Nico and Diggs. So it's like 3 separate stacking opportunities with Stroud. The Dell team has to pass, the Diggs team has to, and the Collins team has to. It's absolutely nuts. Okay, let's move this over. So we have Dak, Love. Hey, if we're looking at quarterbacks that we're going to be targeting in this draft in particular, I think our main target will be Jared Goff to pair up with Gibbs and Laporta. I think Goff actually does correlate well with Gibbs, just given the fact the majority of his value is going to come as a receiver. Lee says, I got Nico, Diggs, Stroud, and a draft. Joey says, can you show your exposure? Yeah, we'll look at this all the time. I'm going to get into a ton of more drafts and really pick up the pace over the next few weeks, and then we can show our exposures. The issue is, like, my exposures right now is just off of too small of a sample. Because up until today, every draft that I have done this year has been on the live stream. Or we specifically did it to record a video. So, like, we have not done nearly as many drafts as we had in years past going into June 30th, because also I was in Europe for a couple weeks and they don't have Underdog in Europe. I know this is gross. I'm going to take an unstacked Joe Burrow here. We don't have Higgins. Actually, oh my gosh, I'm an idiot. I took Burrow because we had Higgins. Ignore the fact that I thought we were taking him unstacked. Getting Joe Burrow here with T. Higgins is an absolute gift a gift sent from the heavens. I mean, that is just freaking beautiful. Oh my gosh. I literally thought Burrow was such a good value at 107. I was going to be willing to take him with no Higgins and just target Burton later on. Just maybe go Chase Brown, maybe take Mike Gesicki and try to pretend like we have something going on there. But yeah, no, getting T. Higgins there at 38 and then Joe Burrow at 107 is just an absolute no-brainer. Brian says, what are your favorite underdog pick'ems prior to the season starting? Y'all are going to hate me for this, but I liked some of the CMC lowers, which maybe I'll make a video for that. But yeah, anyway, now at receiver, we have Garrett Wilson, T. Higgins, Chris Godwin, Jordan Addison. Running back, we have Jahmyr Gibbs, Alvin Kamara, Zamir White, Brian Robinson. Tight end, we have Laporta. Quarterback, we have Burrow. And more likely than not, our next quarterback will be Goff. If we whiff on Goff, no harm, no foul. We will be able to pivot and instead just end up going with like Aaron Rodgers or someone, or we can even go Baker Mayfield. If we were to wait to like take Baker as our second quarterback though, and our first quarterback was pick 107 and then Baker's not going to go off the board till like round 14, then we probably would come away with 3 QBs, especially because we only have to take 2 tight ends with our decision to take Sam Laporta there at the 3-4 turn. Raphael says, your team isn't bad. Addison just has to hit or Godwin, which I'm telling you, I'm going in on Addison this year. Like, obviously, we reach on him according to ADP in this draft, but Addison is easily my favorite round 6 receiver currently. Okay, so I think plan A here is Goff. Trubisky's would be the team that we'd have to worry about taking Goff from us. He has Jameson Williams, so it's definitely a possibility that Trubisky takes Goff. Would not fault them at all for it. Like I said, I'm hoping we get him, but we'll see. Judy goes. If he does go Goff, I think our backup plan is to take Dalton Schultz. Because then if we go Schultz, we essentially lock in the fact that we only have to take 2 tight ends. But no, instead we are going to go Jared Goff here, 131. Pair up Goff with Gibbs as well as Sam Laporta. And we are done drafting quarterback with going quarterback at the 9-10 turn and 11-12 turn. And here I think we have some flexibility. So full transparency, I think that the running backs are by far and away the best values here. Like, I love Zach Charbonnet in this range. The issue with taking Zach Charbonnet is it does put us in a difficult spot in that we would have our 5th running back, and at that point, we're not able to take another running back in this draft. So even if we like love the value of someone later, we're kind of boxed out of the position. So here we're going to go with Xavier Legette instead. I think there'll be other drafts where we have Anthony Richardson where we're a little more inclined to go Josh Downs. But let's go Legette. And I think we're still kind of playing catch-up at receiver here just a bit. But yeah, anyway, now wide receiver, we have Garrett Wilson, T. Higgins, Chris Godwin, Jordan Addison, and Xavier Legette. Tight end, we have Laporta. Running back, we have Gibbs, Kamara, Zamir, Brian Robinson. Quarterback, we have Burrow stacked up with Mr. Higgins. Goff, we have stacked up with Mr. Gibbs and Mr. Laporta. So, yeah, really like this team. And also, I think we've said this before as well, Nick Chubb is someone I'm going to be taking here a lot, specifically in underdog tournaments where the production in weeks 1, 2, 3 doesn't matter nearly as much as the productions in week 15, 16, 17. And yes, keep pounding, my friend. Keep pounding. Dinky says, would you trade Ayuk and Hawk for Pickens and Bowers in a dynasty league? Hawk's my only starting tight ends. I would rather have Ayuk and Hawkinson. The thing is, obviously, with the Hawkinson injury, it's very difficult to project him out to really help you this season. I don't know. I mean, Hawkinson's just proven himself to be one of the best talents in the league at the tight end position. So if we're talking dynasty in particular, like who do I think's drafted higher in 2025 drafts? TJ Hawkinson or Brock Bowers? I think probably Hawkinson. In terms of redraft, dynasty, it's probably Bowers. But I don't know. I think Hawkinson's a proven talent. You're getting a discount on him given the injury. But for Dynasty, that's not really a concern in the long term, you know. Michael Wilson goes 152. Kadarius Toney says, got Chubb at 160. Frank says, closing in on 50% Chubb. Let me see how much Chubb I have. We are going to take TJ Hawkinson. Speaking of the devil here. I mean, we have Laporta, so when we are drafting a second tight end, we're primarily just focusing on upside, not necessarily caring about a baseline level floor that we're going to get from week to week perspective. I have 19% Nick Chubb. Which obviously Chubb is someone that the beginning of the year, not expecting much, very low floor. And we're going to go take Tyler Algier. Wait a sec. Oh, God. I'm still sick, so getting a good sneeze in makes me feel 10 times better. But anyway, yeah, going back to Chubb, significant injury. It's going to be a bum at the beginning of the year. Probably have an expected lower advance rate than a lot of the players he's going behind. The thought process is, okay, you're getting around one pick from last year at pick 140 due to a couple different factors, but primarily his injury. And if you think he could potentially be a running back one in the final month of the year, then it's hard to find a better pick, specifically in a tournament where everything's about weeks 15, 16, 17. Okay. This Bannon brother says Chubb has a peg leg now. Okay. Nah. Here's one thing. I know this is like crazy. I will say Chubb has a peg leg now is a funny comment. I shouldn't have just disregarded that. Pretty funny. But one thing that I was thinking regarding Nick Chubb and his injury is one of the reasons why it is such a big deal is it happened on a primetime game where it was week 2 of the season. So since it's week 2 of the year, every single person and their mom is watching that game. So I don't know. I think with Chubb, I'm not saying it's a guarantee. I am putting my money where my mouth is. I'm pretty much 20% Nick Chubb in these drafts right now. But I think that there is an outside chance that a large percentage of the field is scratching him off their draft board because they saw the injury because they watched it live. Okay. Now let's move this over. Troy Franklin goes. No bueno for us to see Troy Franklin off the board. So at this point, we are pretty much exclusively looking wide receiver. We're going to go ahead. We are going to take Jalen McMillan. We have Godwin. Maybe we tell ourselves a story. Evans gets hurt for the first time ever. Maybe this offense has more volume to go around than people are initially expecting. Let's go ahead. Let's take him as our 6th receiver. And this can be a team where obviously we're only taking 5 running backs. We have Burrow, Goff. I think we can get away with 2 quarterbacks. We have Laporta, Hawkinson. I think we can get away with 2 tight ends. I think it's probably going to be a 2-5-9-2 build. So we're just about to take a ton of very gross receivers. Our next guy, I think we are going to go ahead and we're going to take Zay Jones. Even though if you look at the advanced numbers for Zay Jones last season, it looks like Zay Jones is cooked. Okay. And yes, if you have not done so already, hit that like button, ladies and gentlemen. We'll fire up another draft right now. It doesn't matter what the likes are. These 15-second drafts are going to go by pretty quick. So Let me just show this team off. We're going to take 2 more gross wide receivers here at the very bottom. If we were to go through and say where this team went wrong, I think the Brian Robinson selection at 110, probably we shouldn't have done it. And instead, maybe have gone ahead and taken Mike Williams. I think getting the viable wide receiver there at 110 over Brian Robinson probably would have been a better move for this roster. So I think if this team did make a mistake, it was Robinson 110. We should have gone Mike Williams. But outside of that, I think we stand by a lot of these picks. Obviously, we have the top receivers on this roster. We're hoping that they're holding down the fort here. And we're going to just throw a bunch of crap, and this will be a 2-5-9-2 build. But let's go ahead. Let's get back in the draft lobby, and let's hop in another 15-second timer mini Schnauzer. And yeah, this is that $3 buy-in, $100,000 prize pool, and $10,000 for first, I believe. We're pick 5. Okay, good. Like, I feel better about pick 11, pick 12 than we did a month ago. A month ago, I thought it was disgusting. Honestly, now I just like the fact that we have the option to go Laporta in a lot of those drafts. But, yeah, we're going to... How much Laporta do I have right now? Because that number is going to get jacked up. I like 12% Laporta right now. I would not be surprised if I end up... If Laporta does submit himself as a round 4 pick, I would not be surprised if I end up with like 20% Laporta. Because the thing is, if you're looking at the Laporta profile this year in comparison to last year, obviously last year Laporta was a league winner. This year, the Detroit Lions have the second highest offensive projection in the NFL if you were looking at Vegas implied team totals. Josh Reynolds leaves, so presumably that opens up more red zone targets for Laporta. So you're in an elite offense where your competition is, yes, a stud receiver to Amon-Ra St. Brown. But outside of that, the secondary options are even thinner than they were last year. Okay, so what are we doing here? We're just going to go ahead. We're going to take Jefferson. Like I said, obviously St. Brown, better offense, but still. But Laszlo in here at pick 10. Alex in at 8. Bean Salad in here at 4. Nez is in it. Beardster in at 1. Jeep Guy says, would you like a 5-second timer contest? Probably not, my friend. Possibly if I was not streaming. Possibly, but probably not. Trav Snow in here at 11. Okay. So looking at this, A.J. Brown goes before Breece. Breece falls to 9 in this draft. I'm going to have a lot more Breece over Bijan this year. I think that's one spot where we're going to plant a flag in round 1. As in round 1, if we're looking at we're trying to plant flags. It's difficult to fade any of these wide receivers in particular. Like, I think you'd be asking for trouble if you go, oh, I'm just not going to draft Amon-Ra St. Brown. Or, oh, I'm not drafting Jamar Chase. Or, oh, I'm going to take Justin Jefferson at number 2 this year. Like, if you make it in a very aggressive statement like that, I think you could just kind of bury yourself. But one of the small things that I'm going to be doing in drafts, and I made a video letting y'all all know this, is I think I will take Breece over Bijan in drafts this year. Which I wish I did last year. Obviously, we were taking Bijan over Breece last year. We're going to go ahead. We're going to take Chris Olave. Olave ADP is 16.5. Should be a little bit of a more rare start to go Jefferson Olave out the gate if you just look at how their ADPs line up at 5 and 16. There's definitely going to be some crossover, but it's not like it's going to be as common as a Jahmyr Gibbs, Marvin Harrison Jr. start, where that's pretty much standard out the gate. Demonic says 15-second timers are the best, in my honest opinion. Wish they could implement that as an option. So Hayden Winks tweeted out that they were trying something new with these timers. So my guess, and of course this is just a guess, is I think they're going to see what the feedback's like, and they're potentially going to go forward and make a shorter timer than 30 seconds an option. I don't want to say for all drafts, but probably for a lot. And I'm just guessing, I'm just speculating here, but we're going to take Neighbors. I don't really take Neighbors too often just because it's a very bad offense in New York. Right now, I believe it's projected out to be the second worst offense in the NFL, only ahead of the New England Patriots. Where obviously, if you look at the Patriots receivers and where they go, it's going to be a completely different story than this. But I don't know if he falls past ADP, where you're looking at an ADP of 26 for Neighbors, 16 for Olave. So the crossover between these two guys going to be rare. I mean, y'all know I really like the elite level quarterbacks in the range of 44. I really like the tight ends in the range of 53. So I would like to put ourselves in a position where we're not having to take a wide receiver there if we don't want to. So yeah, I think wide receiver is the pick, especially once Kyron's off the board. I'm not taking Derrick Henry. And yeah, I need to make a video on why we're not taking Henry this year. Jeep guy. I don't know if I love Neighbors. I love Neighbors the prospect. I think that the Giants have the best receiver that they've seen since Odell. And Odell was literally 10 years ago now in 2014, which is crazy to think about. Okay. Utah Sports says, I heard it was voting with your dollar, seeing which of the three closed out fastest is the most popular. I honestly would be surprised if that's what it is. My guess is it's going to be a little more nuanced than which of the contests closed the fastest. But I am just guessing, of course. Okay. Now, Jalen Hurts off 41. Kelsey goes. I would have for sure taken Kelsey if he had made it to us. Is taking Kelsey here mid-round 4 just gives you so many options that you can take Mahomes all the way back around 5. J.K. Ooper, we've had the pleasure of drafting with them a ton. We're going to go ahead. We will take Higgins. Getting Higgins here, seeing Burrow fall in a decent amount of these drafts. I will admit to y'all, I was in a Best Ball Mania draft earlier today where Burrow fell, I want to say it was like 13. Actually, it was further than that. It was, again, almost like 20 picks past ADP. And I did not have Chase. I did not have Higgins. And I took Burrow anyway with the assumption that we could get Burton later on, with the assumption we could get maybe Chase Brown, maybe get Gesicki. And we whiffed on the Bengals. So we had a naked Burrow, which doesn't feel great. Okay, so Keenan. So obviously at this point, we're not really looking at wide receiver. I think wide receiver here in round 5 is kind of going to be gross in comparison to some of these other options. And yeah, we're going to go ahead. We're going to get ETN here, which feels phenomenal to have ETN as our running back 1 in round 5. I really like the start. Obviously, I mean, we haven't done anything here other than click whoever's at the top of ADP. But it's called letting the draft board fall to you and then constructing your team in the middle rounds how you like. Copy Paste Date says Ridley isn't gross. I'm not saying Ridley's gross here, but would I rather have Calvin Ridley or Travis Etienne? Would I rather have Calvin Ridley or Josh Jacobs? Would I rather have Calvin Ridley or Trey McBride? Calvin Ridley or Lamar Jackson? Give me every name that I did not say. I mean, give me every name other than Calvin Ridley there. This bandit says, where do you see Kelsey getting drafted once the casuals start drafting? I don't know if... What's so funny is, like, you want to come in, like... wanting to come out here and say, like, talk down on casuals, right? Saying, like, oh, drafts, once we get closer to the season, Kelsey's going to go higher because casual drafters are going to come in August and September. They're going to see Travis Kelce, who in years past been a round 1 pick, yada, yada, yada. And Kelsey's going to get pushed up to being an early 3rd round or a late 2nd. if you look at what casuals have done in the past, quote unquote casuals, from my point of view, I would have guessed that it was a quote unquote casual thing to be taking Puka Nacua often last year. Like, so I know you're not inherently talking down of like casual players coming in August and September, but I think there is like an issue with people in fantasy football, like thinking that the crowd that's going to come in August and September, they're just complete fish that don't know what they're doing. Obviously, if they can't get there from a roster construction perspective, they may be lost. But I don't know. I've been personally taking, I mean, I will be perfectly fine taking Kelsey 42. I'm trying to get, and let me tell you all my tight end exposures right now. We already looked at Laporta. I'm overweight Laporta. We're looking at the elite tight ends. Kelsey, I'm at 13%. So I'm overweight Kelsey. I'm going to go Kamara. I'm not a big Montgomery guy this year. I'm overweight Kelsey. I'm overweight Laporta. I'm at 13% Andrews. I'm overweight Andrews. I'm at 9% Kincaid. So I'm right in line / slightly overweight. Now, the two guys that I've not, there are three guys I have not drafted. I have 3% Trey McBride. So no Trey McBride. I mean, underweight McBride, 3% Kittle. I'm underweight Kittle. And 3% Kyle Pitts. It's funny. I literally thought with Pitts, I thought with two of those names, I'd be at like 0%. It's funny, I'm at 3% for all of them. But yeah, I'm aggressively targeting at ADP, Laporta, Kelsey, Andrews, Kincaid. Because I think if you're comparing them to the receivers, they can outscore them with where they're going. Now Ferguson goes 84. So if we're looking at quarterbacks that we're going to try to target for these receivers, if we're talking about the top quarterbacks, really the only guy is going to be Burrow. Now what's interesting to note is Bean Salad is in this draft with us. Just now noticed that, my friend, at 4. That would be the team that we'd have to be worried about taking Burrow since they have Chase. So if we wanted to go ahead and take Burrow, we need to take Burrow at 92. I don't think we can pass on Burrow and expect to get him on the way back around 9. Jonathan Brooks off 88. Sutton goes 89. Swift. Yeah, so I think we are going to get Burrow here. At least in my mind, J.K. Uber doesn't have a reason to take him. Getting Burrow to pair up with Higgins does open the door for us to possibly only take 2 quarterbacks. If we were only going to take... J.K. Uber goes Burrow. Okay, never mind. We are thrown off here. Now, all of a sudden, we need a maybe panic pick. Let's go ahead and let's take Zach Moss. Maybe just because in my mind, I was already cemented that we were going to go with the Bengal. Now we have to reevaluate. What are we doing now? This is a very awkward spot. I mean, a lot of these drafts we come away with at least an elite quarterback or an elite tight end. Now we're going through the first 8 rounds without drafting a QB or a tight end. So this is going to be one of the very rare instances where if we don't recover and take a couple top quarterbacks almost immediately, we may end up needing to take 3 QBs and 3 tight ends. Which obviously this is going to be a team, if we take 3 QBs and 3 tight ends, where we can only take 5 running backs. Bean Salad says he auto-selected Chase Brown. Brutal, my friend. Oh, dear God. That was probably a bad pick. I don't know why I did that. Looking at Njoku there at 101, the issue with that selection is Njoku a good enough tight end where we only need to take 2? Like, what tight end could we pair up with Njoku where we're only having to take 2 of them? Goddard, Schultz, Frymuth, Komet, Hawkins. Like, I don't know what we should have done. What would you all have done there? What would you have done? Coppay State says, you set yourself up for Judy, Ford, Watson, double with Deshaun. Possibly. Frank says he would have gone Pollard. I think maybe it's just me panicking, not having a quarterback or tight end through the first 8 rounds, where personally, I really haven't liked my builds when we've done that. Like, where we just exclusively taking running backs and wide receivers there. But yeah, if we go Pollard, it is a more comfortable spot to only take 5 running backs, even though we waited to get our first running back in round 5. I really wanted Goddard to make it to us. If Goddard would have made it to us, I would have felt so much better about only taking 2 tight ends with Njoku. Javonte goes. Frank says you can survive with 3 mid to late round tight ends. Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, obviously, having Njoku tight end 1, take 2 more tight ends later on. Your tight end position's great. But we're going to have to take 3 quarterbacks here. So I don't know how excited I am to take 3 tight ends. We're going to go Trey Benson. We need a running back. Falls 10 picks past ADP. So we're fine with it. I will say also as another side note, speaking of like bets that I'm making individually, keep in mind the same guy that bet on Trey Lance last year, so I don't know if you want to follow me with this, is I am fading Hollywood at his price, and I am taking Xavier Worthy. If you've noticed in these drafts, at least today, especially with some of these drafts I've had off the live stream, and you see it here as well, Worthy is falling to late round 6 now. And if you look at how Hollywood has performed over the past few seasons, I'm sorry, just one second. So it would be so nice if we could go Lawrence here and then get Gabe Davis on the way back around. I just don't know if that would be possible. Oh my gosh, what are we doing? We're going to take Schultz and call it a day at tight ends. If we're looking at Schultz in comparison to some of the other names here at court, I don't know if I like Schultz over them in a vacuum, but specifically, I think if we have Schultz, we can get away with only drafting 2 tight ends, which is what I want to do when we have 3 quarterbacks. Sorry, had a coughing attack. Had to throw this on mute. But let's move this down. So, yeah, that's just such an awkward spot. Cousins goes, I mean, Lawrence is still falling. Lawrence goes 132. Interested to see where Gabe Davis goes. Dude, guys says, are you still planning on doing the league-style content with other creators this year? Great news for that, my friend. I think you'll really be excited about this. I officially booked the Airbnb. I officially bought everyone's flights. Every creator on flockfantasy.com, all the developers of flockfantasy.com, my main editor, all coming to Austin. Got a sick Airbnb for August 19th through the 23rd. That's 5 days, 4 nights. And we will be hosting a meetup in Austin. Probably be that Thursday. So I think maybe the 22nd or so. I don't have the exact details for y'all just yet. But be prepared. Flock meetup. A bunch of other YouTube creators will be there in Austin. Plan is for it to be free. The only reason it wouldn't be free is if we can't do it at a public place. So we have to rent a private venue, and I have to give the private venue an amount of people that will be there. So what we've done with meetups in the past is we've just like done it at the public park, which is really beautiful. And it's like, okay, I mean, 1,000 people can show up. One person can show up. It doesn't matter. I don't have to tell the people at the park. It's massive. Everybody's going to fit. But the issue with it this year is I don't know if we can do it there because it's going to be late August in Austin, Texas, where it'll be 1,000 degrees outside. So here's what you do, ladies and gentlemen, if you whiff on all your quarterbacks in Underdog. You go, okay. Yes, I missed on Joe Burrow. Yes, we did not take any other receivers, the elite level quarterbacks that we had access to, yada, yada, yada. So instead, we're going to take Justin Herbert and then one of the biggest busts that the NFL has seen over the past 5 years, the wide receiver position. We're going to take N'Keal Harry style bust here at pick 148. So we will take Herbert and Quentin Johnston. Teresa says, so we can all come. We're for sure, like let me say also real quick, Teresa, I'd love for you to come. The base assumption is it's going to be free for everybody. Like I said, the only reason it would cost anything is just so I can tell a venue how many people are going to be there. And if it does cost anything, it'll probably be like $5 or whatever. Just essentially an RSVP. But yeah, I don't think I have anything other than that. But yes, it'll be probably August 22nd. I don't want to lock in that date right now. If it's not August 22nd, it'll be August 21st or August 20th, something like that. We'll be in Austin, Texas. Maybe at Zilker Park, maybe at a venue. I'm going to put out some feelers and see if we can get together. But I will be there. The Fantasy Stock Exchange will be there. Fantasy Domain will be there. Fantasy Land will be there. I'm going to invite some other people as well. But those are the, for sure, tickets are bought, rooms have that I can guarantee will be there. Okay. Now, Adam Thielen off. So we cannot go with a tight ends here. We are exclusively quarterback, running back, wide receiver. Gibson goes. I think we will take Deshaun, pair up Deshaun Watson with David Njoku. Waiting until 140 to grab our first quarterback. I'm going to be taking 3 quarterbacks no matter what here, right? But still having access to someone that presumably has upside. I mean, in 2017, 2018, 2019, this was one of the best quarterbacks in fantasy football. Now, obviously, I don't know the last time this guy was any good, but let's move this down. And yeah, Jeep guy, yeah, and we'll be doing we're going to be doing a league as well with everybody, like all the creators who come, and we're going to make content around it, which I don't know the exact specifications what we're going to do. We're going to meet and talk about what works best for everybody, but I think it should be a lot of fun. I think people will like it a lot. Okay. Now, wide receiver, running back I guess we can go quarterback here, but Rodgers, Levis, I don't necessarily know if either of them are in play. We're going to take Mims. For the sole purpose that there'll be other drafts where we don't have multiple rookie receivers, where I think maybe it makes a little more sense to take Corley. There'll be other drafts where we have already drafted Kyler, where in this one in particular, we're still going to be looking at a quarterback a little later on. That quarterback can be Bo Nix. Clearly, we need a receiver, and I think Mims has a similar range of outcomes to those other guys. And I will say, I probably am going to start drafting some Troy Franklin now, just because he's reasonably priced going next to Mims. Whenever there was like a multiple round difference between these guys, I was drafting literally 0 Troy Franklin. Let me see how much I have. I have 1% Troy Franklin. I have him in one Best Ball Mania league in draft. The Pound, let me know, where are you at, my guy? I would love for you to come, hang out at the Airbnb, get in an Underdog draft with us. You close to Austin? Okay. Swing this over. Wish I would have known that these tight ends, actually, no, Ben Sanagios. Okay, never mind. It's not like these are phenomenal tight end values. Okay. McMillan, Young. Hook'em Horns are actually going to take Roshan, which kind of grows because if you look at the range of outcomes that you have from Roshan versus like the next 10 running backs on this list, kind of all about similar, but the difference with Roshan here in comparison to some of these other names is this is a running back that is getting drafted in every single one of these contests. So you don't have like the Kyron Williams benefit where Kyron absolutely smashes and turns into a league winner. And on top of it, he's at lower ownership through the tournament because he doesn't get drafted in every single one. Okay. Now we need a receiver, and our receiver's probably DJ Chark here. To get the double stack with Herbert. Or we could go Elijah Moore. We'll go DJ Chark. I prefer Chark over Moore. And then we're going to go ahead. We'll take a quarterback. Nix correlates with us. McCarthy does. We'd probably rather McCarthy over Nix. Carr does because we have probably rather have Carr over both of them, to be honest. Because we also have Olave. So honestly, like all these guys are in play. And worst case scenario, we get Fields with the unstacked rushing upside. But let's go ahead. Let's move this over. And I'm going to hop into another draft. Thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us this fine Sunday. I wish I could say we feel great, but as you can tell, I'm pretty sick. But honestly, I just freaking love these 15-second drafts. So even if we were in the live stream, I kind of want to hop in another one anyway. So let's get in this bad boy. But the Pound, where are you based out of, my guy? I feel like you've told me before. If I had to guess from memory, I think it's the Midwest, somewhere in the Midwest. But I could be wrong. Let me know. But we are pick 5 again. We got Ben drafting next to us, which is exciting. And let me know if you're in this draft. The Almighty Hat Snatcher. I've seen this profile pick before. It's definitely not the name for the person who used to have this profile pick. I don't know if it's two separate individuals. Let me know if you've been with us for a while, my friend. But I'm almost certain that wasn't your name. Ben, happy to see you, my guy. Long time member of the vlog. GC out here. Lucky pick number 9. And Kadarius Toney, my guy. 0 for 3 in drafts. And also, just absolute garbage in general. Come on, my guy. Come on. Typical Kadarius Toney stat line. 0 receptions off of the 3 targets. Probably 3 drops, to be honest with you. I think that's on you. Cue the plug. Okay, yes, that's what it was, my friend. I knew. I was like, this person's been with us forever. This definitely was not their name previously. Let's mix it up. Let's go with the Monroe St. Brown over Jefferson just because we just did a draft with Jefferson at 5. So let's show you all something a little bit different, and let's see if we can maybe make a different move here. Okay. Thomas, 0 for 92 of all time. This is me in pickup basketball, I'll say. I'm making a vlog right now from the France trip, and you'll get to see a clip of me playing basketball in there. And also the Airbnb that we got in Austin, there is a basketball court. So you'll probably get to see some Mason Dodd hoop coverage there as well. But any pickup game, You can better believe my stat line's pretty close to 0 for 92. But I will tell you, nobody hustles harder. Nobody gives more effort. Nobody has more heart. And I'm a freaking rebounding machine. And when I say I'm a rebounding machine in pickup games, it's more like, okay, if I'm in a pickup game where people aren't caring, since I'm just going to be trying so much harder, I'll end up getting a lot of rebounds. The Pound says it rhymes with Austin, but nowhere close Boston. Well, my guy, well, that sucks. I'm sorry. Funny enough, two of the developers are coming out from Boston now. So there's a direct Delta flight. I know that. Okay, Kadarius Toney in there with Waffle Taco and Vinny. Poor guys. Yes, a rebound monster. You'll get to see some rebounding highlights in the vlog coming out soon. Cue the plug. Been trying to get in a draft for 4 years. It's not that hard, my guy. I'm happy you're in here with us. But we got people out here making it every night. But I'm happy to draft with you. But if you've been trying to get in for 4 years and this is now, you got some bad timing, my friend. Okay, Taylor off 15. I guess that's he's a 6'5" Iron Man. You better be able to rebound. Honestly, for a 5'3" individual, I'm a freaking rebounding beast. And also one thing too with pickup games, which I saw like a funny Instagram reel, which it was like when your non-hooper friend is guarding you, and it's like some guy putting a sick move, and it's like the defender doesn't even move, and he's just like right there the entire time. So like the crossover or whatever the hell it is didn't work at all. That is exactly how I am playing basketball. Since like my brother played high school basketball, is pretty good, but whenever we play one-on-one, does like a bunch of fancy moves. I just stand there, clamp them down. Okay, now Vietong says, what's your preferred position in any draft? It's going to depend on the format. If it is a super flex draft, if it is a super flex dynasty league, I'd love a top 2 pick to get Allen or Mahomes. I'd love a top 3 pick to get Allen, Mahomes, or Stroud. All right, say the same thing if it's a super flex underdog draft, to be honest. If it is a regular redraft league, I think you have a little bit of a flatter tier where I'm probably not taking Garrett Wilson, Puka in round 1, and instead I'd probably go Gibbs, Taylor at the very end. Obviously, underdog is going to be different. So I don't necessarily know. Depends on your league mates. Because even in a regular redraft league, if it was a start 2 receiver, 1 flex league, I think I could see an argument to be made to go Brees over some of those other guys that we take ahead of him typically. We're going to go ahead. We will take Neighbors here at 29. Let me see how much Neighbors I have. But specifically in underdog drafts right now, give me a top 8 pick so I can lock up one of CMC, Lamb, Tyreek, Chase, St. Brown, Jefferson, Bijan, Brees. Give me a top 8 pick in underdog drafts. Okay. Runner says, I don't get Waddle over Nico and Ayuk at all. Well, my friend, both Nico and Ayuk went before Waddle in this draft. Both went before. Q says, I've got 0 Neighbors as of now. Let me see how much Neighbors I have. Because I feel like I kind of say, I don't care for Neighbors often, but I'll take him when he falls past ADP, and I get an okay amount of him. After the last draft, I'm 9% Malik Neighbors. So I'm right in line with average on Neighbors. Let me see the players that I have none of. Let's go down to 1%. I have 1% Troy Franklin. I'm ignoring like a bunch of like round 18 guys that are just random that don't get drafted in every one. I have 1% Derek Carr. I have 1% Evan Ingram. 1% Jake Ferguson. 3% Jalen Wright. Oh my gosh, I only have 3% Lawrence. I honestly assumed I had way more Lawrence than that. I need to start taking more Trevor Lawrence. Okay, Albie, I really like going with Flowers than Lamar there. Let's move this around. We have a lot of flexibility, of course, when we decide to go 3 wide receivers at the gate. When you go 3 wide receivers at the gate, I think we put ourselves in a position where we can afford to just take Travis Etienne here round 4. Yes, we pushed the limit a little bit where in the last draft, we actually got Travis Etienne round 5. Wasn't expecting it. Obviously not going to fall to pick 53 in every draft. And in that last one, we decided to take T. Higgins at 44. My thing is, like, I don't think Christian Kirk should be drafted at Travis Etienne. So I got to take Higgins there and hope that Etienne makes it back around to us. I don't see a big reason to take Kirk because I don't see him in a massively different tier than the other guys that will be there in round 5. A-Rod says, what do you have against Evan Ingram? I don't inherently have anything against Evan Ingram. Obviously, at a considerable amount of target volume last season. I don't know. Maybe we need to start drafting more Ingram. It's just typically in that range of the draft, I'm not looking at tight end. Like we already showed with our Laporta, Kelsey, Andrews exposures, and Kincaid. Typically, I'm getting that elite tight end 1 where I can in rounds 3, 4, or 5. And then I'm pairing them up with a tight end later in the draft. And yeah, we'll go McLaurin. I'm not drafting McLaurin often, but getting him past ADP, maybe having a little bit more of unique builds. It's going to be tough as if we end up getting boxed out of quarterback and tight end yet again, where you see Andrews and Kincaid go right before us. We see Mahomes go before us as well. Those were going to be the names that I was hoping that we got. I was hoping McLaurin went at his usual ADP at 48. That way we had access to one of those tight ends or the quarterback. So I don't want to be in a position, again, where we have 0 quarterbacks or tight ends in the first 8 rounds. Oh, my gosh. I as soon as this live stream ends, I'm taking NyQuil and going to bed. I could not sleep last night. I had to sleep on the couch because I didn't want to keep up the girlfriend. B says, 5 running backs optimal, question mark. So it's going to depend on the tournament selection that you were in. You will see, because y'all know, obviously, when we get closer to the season, I drafted a lot of high-stakes drafts on Underdog, where it's a smaller overall field. And there, I think I can push to 6 running backs more often. However, when you're in the large field contest on Underdog, I think it's probably going to be a little bit tougher to get away with 6 running backs, and typically we're going to want to go with 5. So, I don't know. I think it just kind of depends. We're going to get George Kittle here, which I feel very good about. I mean, especially when we whiffed on the tight ends there in round 5. I mean, I'm definitely preferring Dalton Kincaid, Mark Andrews in round 5 than George Kittle in round 6. I'm fine paying the premium for those guys. But, I mean, once they're gone and we don't get that opportunity, I'm happy about Kittle here. And one player that I have not drafted enough of that I need more is Brock Purdy. I mean, if you look at Purdy right now, it's not like he's a complete 0 when it comes to his rushing upside. And this is supposedly the best offense in the NFL according to Las Vegas sportsbooks. That team at 1 only has 1 receiver through the first 7 rounds. I'll tell you right now, just in case you're new to Underdog, if you only have 1 wide receiver through the first 7 rounds, you have a dead team, you have no shot to compete, which I'm very sorry to inform of, but I do believe it's the truth. Okay, looks like this may be a team where we're set up to go with a Trevor Lawrence double stack, to go Brian Thomas and Travis Etienne to get Lawrence a little later on. Now, let's focus it on 2 things, which will be interesting. That's going to be the Christian Kirk and the Evan Ingram selections. So if we're looking at Kirk and Ingram, they're back-to-back. They're with teams 1 and teams 2. So let's look at the Trevor Lawrence ADP, figure out when we need to take him. Lawrence has an ADP of 118. So if we wanted Trevor Lawrence, the awkward spot is if we were to pass on him at 116, there's pretty much no shot that we get him back around at 125 because Lawrence would have to make it past both the Christian Kirk and the Evan Ingram teams. So if we do want Trevor Lawrence for this double stack, we're probably going to need to go Lawrence at 116. Okay, let's move this. Is this going to be another draft where Burrow falls? I want to, since we don't have Chase, since we don't have Higgins, I personally would not consider taking Burrow until round 9. Now, if I had Higgins or Chase, obviously, very different story. Bowers goes 90. And here, this is a round where we want to be taking running back or quarterback more often than not, right? A Dak pick here doesn't make too much sense for us. We're going to take DeAndre Swift. Swift flames out with Philly, flames out with Detroit. It's going to be a worse offense than what he was in last season. So obviously you don't love it. The only saving grace that I think you have with DeAndre Swift is the money is there with that contract. Like the Bears do pay him a considerable amount, and obviously this is someone that has caught the ball in years past. Okay, so a bunch of wide receivers are going here. Good for us, right? I mean, obviously, we're sitting here with St. Brown, Waddle, Neighbors, McLaurin, Brian Thomas. We're fine to see these wide receivers go. So running back's still in play for us. Quarterback's in play. Really the only thing I personally would not do here for our team construction is I personally am not going to be looking at Shaheed or Palmer. I think the wide receivers here are kind of gross and we don't need them. Q says that dude just sniped Dak from me for no reason. My friend, let me look at that. I saw him take Dak. I just assumed that maybe he was the team that had Lamb. This is going to be another team where we go Njoku. Big reason being is I want to lock ourselves in only 2 tight ends, as this will be a team where we take 3 QBs. But yeah, that team at 1, they're just lost, my friend. I mean, their only receivers so far through the first 9 rounds are Devonta Smith and Romeo Doubs. So I don't think you can expect them to kind of be rational with stacks. So sucks, but it is what it is, my friend. I'm sorry. Bean Salad says, I feel like the quarterbacks in the 90 to 130 range are great values. The thing is, like, at every point of the draft, I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to be taking a quarterback here. It's like round 4. Oh, I love me some round 4 Josh Allen. Oh, round 9 Joe Burrow. I love me some round. Like, it seems like quarterbacks are phenomenal values. So very rarely do I find myself, and I know now we do it in back-to-back drafts here, so it's like, you want to roll your eyes and say, yeah, right, Mason. But very rarely do I find myself not having at least 1 to 2 quarterbacks by the time you get to like the range where Brock Purdy's off the board. Okay. Goddard 112. Good for us to see tight ends go. So if we're looking at quarterbacks that are in play, Jaden Daniels can always be in play regardless of stacking options given his rushing upside. Plus we have Terry McLaurin here. Brock Purdy is in play for us considering the fact that we have George Kittle. Jane Daniels goes. Kind of sucks. I'd love to get Daniels that far past ADP to pair up with McLaurin. I'm not going to sweat it, though. We're going to go ahead. We're going to take Brock Purdy. I think Purdy's a phenomenal value in this range. We just got done talking about the fact that we want more Brock Purdy. And we have George Kittle for this roster. I still think that we're probably going to end up coming away with 3 QBs. But yeah, Tua goes here 118. There was a shot that, we were trying to get Tua on the way back around for the Waddle pairing, but it is what it is. Cowboys goes Myers and Cooks. Raphael says, I think the 15-second timer is beautiful. I agree. It's kind of funny because, at least in my mind, the standard timer, like the default timer before Underdog drafts came out, we're going to go Judy. We're going to set ourselves up a Judy, Njoku, Watson double stack. But I feel like the default timer before Underdog drafts came out was 60 seconds. At least that's what I was used to. So whenever Underdog drafts came out, and I really started drafting them, I think 4 years ago, I distinctly remember like 30 seconds feeling very fast. Like feeling like I was scrambling. And then now 15 seconds seems like a breeze, you know? Raphael says 30 is too long and 10 is too short. Yeah, I love the 15 seconds. The thing is, it will be interesting once we get closer to the start of the year and people begin to watch these or people begin to draft in these that aren't sickos and have been doing it all year long, you know? Yes, I'm calling us sickos. I wonder what they're going to think of like watching this fantasy draft go this fast, you know? So how long have we been live right now? Been live for an hour and 10 minutes, and we are about to be done with our third draft. 3 points in. Welcome to being a member of the flock, my friend. Thank you for hanging out with us. Okay, so let's swing this back. This is a draft now that we can easily justify taking 6 RBs. Which most time I'm only taking 5, but here with our 2 running backs being Etienne and Swift through the first 11 rounds, I think 5 RBs is definitely in play. Just really the only thing we can't do here is can't take a tight end when we have Kittle and Njoku. So we're going to go ahead. We will take Miller as our 3rd running back. I'm not drafting him a ton. He's still incredibly young. That's the one thing you want to say. He didn't really catch the ball at TCU. Not going to catch the ball now. It's not a good offense. I didn't like him coming out of TCU. I'm not a big Miller guy. I think on a construction like this, maybe it makes sense, though. Maserati Masi says, if you get Lamar and Andrews, do you take 3 quarterbacks or 3 tight ends? In other words, what scenario to only take 2 quarterbacks and 2 tight ends? So the only scenario in which if I go with the tight end or a quarterback through the first 5 rounds, that I end up with 3 of them, is if the 2nd and 3rd at that position turn out to be like round 16 and 17 or 17 and 18 or 16 and 18, where it's like super, super late at the very end and I punted the 2nd spot. But if you just get like a respectable QB2 or a respectable tight end 2, then most the time when you go Lamar or when you go Andrews, your plan is to only draft 2 quarterbacks or 2 tight ends. Okay. Burton goes 148. We'll take Chandler. I mean, the thing is with Chandler, I don't really like him either. But if you look at the efficiency drop-offs that you've seen with Aaron Jones, if you look at what the Packers just did in deciding to go and draft a running back in round 3, go sign Josh Jacobs and just move on from Jones. Aaron Jones, I don't think is that good anymore. I don't think Ty Chandler is that good. I don't think his offense is that good. But it is what it is. I mean, right? Darnell Mooney's the other freaking option. The Money Seller says, if they do switch to 15, 30, and 8 hours, in my opinion, the 15 seconds will be all the sharpest players and 30 second more casual. It is an interesting thought process, right? Because obviously you'd want to, if there are sharks and there are fish, you'd rather be drafting with the fish and avoiding the sharks. I don't know if you could easily say, though, that the good drafters would all do 15 seconds and the bad drafters would all do 30 seconds. Quote unquote good, quote unquote bad. You know what I'm saying? I don't think... I don't know if you can say that, because thinking of myself, whether you want to say I'm a good or a bad drafter, I don't know what I am. All I would know is if I'm in a situation like this where I'm live streaming and like an underdog draft is the only thing I'm doing, I would do the 15-second timer. This is 100% my attention. This is what I'm doing. But like if I'm going to be drafting in the morning at the gym or something, or if I'm going to be drafting while I'm doing work, then I definitely want a 30-second timer, because I'm not going to be staring at my phone. I'm going to get like an alert and I have to pick it up. Then I have to go to it, remind myself what my team is. So I don't know. I think it probably depends on the situation. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to take Deshaun Watson as our QB2. We're going to get the Watson, Judy, and Njoku double stack. And then we are going to be looking at the thing. Okay, here's two different things. One, if we were to draft 6 running backs, we probably can only take 2 quarterbacks. 2, if we were to draft 3 quarterbacks, we can get up to 6 RBs. The thing is, though, our receivers are St. Brown, Waddle, Neighbors, McLaurin, Brian Thomas, Jerry Jeudy. I think we still have to take 8 receivers here. I don't think we can get away with 7 receivers with this wide receiver room. Elijah Mitchell goes 171. Wandale off the board. Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry, ladies and gentlemen. I'm actually probably going to... This is our last draft of the stream. We have 2-3 rounds left. I'm sorry. I need to take NyQuil and I need to go to bed. I am very sick, and I'm hoping that I am better tomorrow. I'm hoping that I can actually go run or bike or swim. I'm hoping I can go do something. But appreciate you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. Got in 3 drafts today. Probably going to get 3 drafts going tomorrow. Yeah, thank you so much for everything. I really do appreciate you. I mean, especially like we said at the beginning of the stream, it blows my mind that some of y'all have hung out with me for so damn long, that y'all are out here with me every single night. Thank you. That's all I got to say. But appreciate you. Really hope you have a great night, and really hope we get to see you out tomorrow.